Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. It is October 18th, 2024. The time now is 5:41 p.m. Eastern Time. Hope everyone is doing all right today. So we're continuing on our journey to expose the New World Order. Yesterday, we left off at the shock troops. Many people were talking about implants for mind control. Dr. Delgado, obviously. Excuse me. I'm still a little under the weather, but I'm here. So again, we were continuing on the mind control of the New World Order, how it started with a bunch of foundations and organizations. Excuse me. And how our educational system, our political system is controlled by a few at the top. And they've done that. This plan has been in effect since the late 1800s. And this is why we have the school system that we have. And this is why we're facing the things that we're facing today. So let's just start with this chapter on shock troops. Excuse me, guys. Hold on. Okay, this chapter is on shock troops. And it talks about in 1944, while World War II was still raging, Lord Montagu Norman resigned from his position at the Bank of England. Norman, a man prone to repeated mental problems and hospitalizations, and who had been a staunch supporter of Hitler prior to the war, announced the beginning of the British National Association for Mental Health, which was in fact only a renaming of the National Councils of Mental Hygiene, which is a group that had been heavily involved in pushing eugenics programs prior to the war. With Hitler's downfall, eugenics had an extremely unsavory odor that needed to be quote-unquote deodorized with a name change. Certainly, eugenics never vanished, as witnessed, for example, by the thousands of women involuntarily sterilized in Sweden and other European countries until and up to 1970s. The NAM, which is the National Association for Mental Health, functioned as the Tavistock Front organization, which would soon become the controlling body for the world psychiatry. An examination of the officers of NAM, sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? NAM, provides clues as to its direction. One of his officers was Richard Austin Butler. He was a pro-Nazi deputy foreign minister to Lord Halifax and became president. Lord Halifax's son-in-law, the Earl of Feversham, became the chairman. Vice chairman was Norman's wife, Priscilla Rentiens, which was a vocal proponent of eugenics programs and the Nazis, who had assisted Germany rearmament by releasing 6 million British pounds in Czech gold to the Germans. And this was after the occupation of Czechoslovakia. Otto Niemeyer, Norman's assistant at the Bank of England, became treasury of the organization. Perhaps the group should have been titled the Nazi Association for Mental Health. In 1948, an international congress on mental health at the Ministry of Health in London was convened by Norman. The Congress was hosted by the British National Association, whose patron was the Duchess of Kent. Again, the royals are involved with the Nazis and eugenics. And the widow of the Grand Master of the Masons and mother of the Grand Masters of the Masons to follow. A World Federation for Mental Health was formed at the Congress with Brigadier General Dr. John Rawlings Rees. And he was the head of the British Psychological Warfare Department and of the Tavistock Institute. He was named president. The co-director of the World Federation was Dr. Frank Fremont Smith. He was the chief medical officer of the Rockefeller-spawned Josiah Macy Foundation that will later be primarily funnel money to the CIA MKUltra mind control project. According to Nina Radinor, which was a technical coordinator of the U.S. delegation to the Congress, this is what she stated. The World Federation for Mental Health had been created upon the recommendation of the United Nations and the World Health Organization and UNESCO because they needed a non-governmental mental health organization with which they could cooperate. The Vice President of the Congress, again, provides a sense of its direction. Dr. Hugh Crichton Miller was a founder of the Tavistock and was vice president of the C.G. Jung Institute in Zurich. The blatantly anti-Semitic Jung himself was another vice president of the Congress. Dame Evelyn Fox was a leading light of the British eugenics program and movement. Lord Thomas G's Lord Thomas G's Hoarder was president of the Eugenics Society of Great Britain. Dr. Winfred Overholser was a high-ranking representative of the Scottish Rite Masons and reportedly linked to German spies' activities in the U.S. Dr. Alfred Frank Treadgold was a member of Britain's Ministry of Health Committee on Sterilization, providing additional insight into the goals of the manipulators of the WFMH are statements of Dr. G. Brock Chisholm. He was the first director and later the head of the World Health Organization through the United Nations. Chisholm delivered an address to the psychiatrists and government officials in Washington, D.C. in 1945, confiding, this is what he stated, "What basic psychological distortion can be found in every civilization of which we know anything? The only psychological force capable of producing these perversions is morality, the concept of the right and wrong. The reinterpretation and eventual eradication of the concept of right and wrong are the belated objectives of nearly all psychotherapy." Chisholm also said that, quote, "The people who have been taught to believe whatever they were told by their parents or their teachers are the people who are the menace to the world." I will repeat that again. Again, let me pause here. These are leaders, okay? These are people that have foundations, that have gone to Yale, Harvard, the schools of Berlin. They've been to the United Nations. Some of them had a hand in creating the United Nations, the League of Nations. They've created the foundations that we all love nowadays. And this is what they're stating about mankind in the lower levels, the common person. That we are ignorant, stupid, and basically we should be eliminated. Because their whole thing is use eugenics to breed out the dummies and reduce the population. So if you haven't heard the previous live streams on this book, I suggest you do so you can understand what I'm talking about. So let me repeat what he said again. The people who have been taught to believe whatever they were told by their parents or their teachers are the same people who are the menace to the world. Given these sentiments, right and wrong do not exist. And parents are the persons least fit for educating their own children. Can any excesses and crimes of the quote unquote mental health field be a surprise. The words of the declaration issued by the National Institute for Mental Health in the United States further revealed that psychiatry has its masters, even beyond the Nazis, Tavistock, and the British aristocracy or aristocracy. And you can include the Freemasons. And this is what they're saying. Principles of mental health cannot be successfully furthered in any society unless there is a progressive acceptance of the concept of world citizenship. World citizenship can be widely extended among all peoples through applications of the principles of the mental health. At a major turning point in world history, there is an obligation on social scientists and psychiatrists to attempt this new formulation. End quote. By 1961, the NIMH, under the direction of the Masonic controller Robert Felix, had distilled a group of psychiatrists, neuropsychologists, chemists, and other scientists, including many participants in the CIA's infamous MKUltra program. They brought him into the American College of Neuropsychopharmacology. One segment of the college, the study group for the effects of psychotropic drugs on normal humans, held a 1967 conference to chart out the directions for mind control that would follow until the year 2000. The Evans and Klein's report, authored by MKUltra mind control psychiatrist Wayne Evans, which was the director of the U.S. Army Military Stress Laboratory, and Nathan Klein, which was a eugenicist at Columbia University. They reported that the group, quote unquote, concluded that the present breadth of drug use may be almost trivial when we compare it to the possible numbers of chemical substances that will be available for control of selective aspects of man's life in the year 2000. Again, they were talking about this in 1961 and 1967. The study theorized, in obvious reflection of the Tavistock Institute's plan, that the American culture is, quote, moving towards a sensate society, or more likely sedated society. A great emphasis is being placed on sensory experience and less upon rational or work-oriented philosophies. Such a philosophical view, coupled with means to separate sexual behavior from reproduction or disease, will undoubtedly enhance sexual freedom. They continue to say, it seems obvious that the youth of today are no longer afraid of either drugs nor sex. Again, the philosophers and spokesmen for the avant-garde advocate the personal sensory experience as the reason of the coming generation. Finally, we are moving into an age in which meaningful work will be possible only for a minority. In such an age, chemical aphrodisiacs may be accepted as a commonplace means to occupy one's time. If we accept the position that human mood, human motivation, and human emotion are reflections of the neurochemical state of the brain, then drugs can provide a simple, rapid, expedient means to produce any desired neurochemical state that we wish, that they wish. Okay? Now, let me pause here. We're all thinking about why everything is deteriorating so rapidly and why it's deteriorating at all. It's not because humans are lazy. Okay, it's not because we are lazy. It's not because we are stupid. It's not because all the things that we publicly say to each other. It's because there's been a plan purposely implemented through education, through science, through the banking industry to deteriorate our society because those at the top want to remain there. and they don't want us to rise above. They don't think that we have the right to rise to their level. This is their thinking. They think, and their great grandparents thought, that they were better than the common man, that your bloodline is meaningless. So, what they can do to help humanity is control your bloodline, control your, I guess you can say, your generations, which is our generation. This is how arrogant these fucking rich people are. And I'm not talking about regular rich folk that, became rich because they worked hard. I'm talking about the old money, silver spoon in their mouth. This is how they think about us. And this is how they've always thought about us, going back thousands of years. They implemented the programs in our school system. That's why they're teaching the kids the things that they're teaching today that they taught a decade ago, a month ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. This is why you're seeing the deterioration. It's on purpose. Okay. For those of you fighting the culture wars, this has nothing to do with the surface people. This has to do with the system that is implementing these programs. And let me tell you, it ain't the common man implementing these programs. We don't have that kind of power. We don't have that kind of money. We don't. It seems like they put front men for you to buy into whatever it is, whatever philosophy or ideas. But it's not coming from the common person. The common person is mentally delusional if they think that this is their thoughts that are being expressed. No, you're being mind controlled and taught this at school. You're being directed. You're being engineered to do what they want you to do. And these are the facts. As I'm reading this, it's blowing my mind because it is true. They've accomplished mind control. They have all the money in the world. They have all the science because they create the laboratories with their money. And then they implement the curriculum. And then they fund the universities, as we read 2 live streams ago. And then we're wondering why our kids are acting up, or why our grandchildren are acting up, or why the kids are, demons on the street. Is because it's being done on purpose. Everything that we're seeing it's let me tell you, if let's talk about immigration, and let's talk about the criminal element. Simple thing that everyone can understand, universally understand. If they didn't open the borders and provide services, the system, right? Because the government is the system, runs the system. If the government did not provide services, if the government did not announce for the foreigners to come, if the government did not provide easy access, then it wouldn't be here. Very simple. If the system did not release criminals that are violent and they're repeat offenders, then they wouldn't be committing more crimes and causing more destruction and mayhem. Who has the power to change that? Those with authority. We have the illusion of power. Think about this for 1 second. Who makes the laws? Do you think that Congress is listening to the people? They are not. They're slowly bringing in the system that was planned 150 years ago. They're slowly bringing in the technology that that H.G. Wells talked about, that George Orwell talked about. This is what's happening. We did not come up with any of this. Those that have had the money and the power were the ones to introduce this to us. The 60s did not happen because some person on the bottom, and if a commoner was the one that started, started fighting back, and then it was organic, they co-opted it really early. So if it wasn't co-opted, they created. Just like Rockefellers told Aaron Russo, the women's movement was their baby. They created the feminist movement. The Rockefeller family created the feminist movement. They funded it, they directed it, and they made it powerful. And what was their reasoning? What was Rousseau told? Because they wanted to be able to tax more people. Back then, the women were at home raising their kids, keeping the home intact. Once they started the liberation movement and they started funding it and pushing and propaganda and the whole nine, what happened? The women came out of the house, the kids went into the school, and what did he say about that? And now we have control for generations of the minds of the children. This is exactly what this book is talking about. That was the plan from the beginning. So when we're pissed off at Joe Schmo down the street because he's been brainwashed, or Jessica down the street because she's been brainwashed, we need to stop and check ourselves, because we're getting mad at the wrong people. We're getting upset at the wrong people. So let me continue. I will repeat this part again. It seems obvious that the youth of today are no longer afraid of either drugs, so their intention was to get them into drugs and having sex early, having the children have sex and do drugs. So the youth is no longer afraid of either drugs or sex. Again, the philosophers and spokesmen for the avant-garde advocate for the personal sensory experience as the raising of the coming generation. Finally, we are moving into an age in which meaningful work will be possible only for a minority. In such an age, chemical aphrodisiacs may be accepted as a commonplace, which means that it could occupy one's time. We accept the position that the human mood, the human motivation, and the human emotions are a reflection of the neurochemical state of the brain. The drugs can provide a simple and rapid and expedient means to produce any desired neurochemical state that we wish. The sooner that we cease to confuse scientific and moral statements about drug use, the sooner we can rationalize or rationally consider the types of neurochemical states that we wish to be able to provide to the people. Shades of the New World Order. In 1975, the NIMH funded an overall evaluation of behavior modification approaches. Its conclusions were a surprise. These techniques should be applied to the general population of the world and to larger numbers than ever before. At about the same time, the Association for the Advancement of Psychotherapy, in their Mankind 2000 report, introduced the following dark vision. This is what they stated. In the organization of a civilization of the future, we anticipate that the individualistically oriented man will become an anachronism. Indeed, he will be viewed as a threat to the group organization, as well as to his fellow man. Hence, as stated, he in all likelihood will have few individual expectations. While such a picture may not be pleasant to contemplate, when viewed with our present orientation and value judgment, we would be amiss were we to deal with unrealistic imageries that would blind us to future reality. The new world of the closed, this is what they're saying, the new world of the closed, automated system will necessitate a radical change in political and technologic and social thinking. All too often, however, we remain bound by the conventional tenets and the wisdom of past generations. The cybercultural revolution is altering all this. It differs radically from previous innovations because now man has devices that will largely supplant his labor and ascertain activities of his mind. Then they get into the OSS origins. What I'll do is I'll come back later on tonight at about 9ish, and I'll continue on this chapter. But they're spelling it all out in their books. They're telling you that they planned this. They're telling you that they created the school system. They're telling you how they broke down the times of units in the school so no child can be an expert in anything. They basically gave them just enough so they're able to, work, to operate, and to take. And it's weird because I always thought about school this way too. Back in the day, we had, I used to listen to people, and we always used to say, "I'm not a 9 to 5 duck. I'm not a 9 to 5 duck." And I always saw school like that, and I always saw work like that, 9 to 5. And people say, "Yeah, you're working for the man." It's true. You are working 9 to 5 for the enrichment of another man. And they're saying that that's exactly what they wanted to do. Make individuals to not think. Hold on, guys. They wanted to make individuals to not think, not be an expert in any type of subject. And on top of that, we're being steered. And now we're being engineered because now we can alter the DNA. And it was set up by them, controlled by them, funded by them, still funded by them. When we're talking about critical race theory, don't get mad at the people that are being controlled without their knowledge. Some of them don't even know that they're being controlled. They think that they're smart because they're introducing something that they believe in. Those people are being controlled. The real people behind critical race theory, and prior to that, white race theory, and prior to that, eugenics program, they're the same people, the grandchildren of the same people. And this is something we have to understand. They're using psychology, psychiatry, mental health. They funded the WHO and every organization that we right now dislike. They funded it. And now you know why they're doing the things that they're doing. And for the hater out there, I'm still going to do these videos because I know you're watching right now because you're the only one. I'm still going to do these videos and there's nothing you can do about it. Get mad all you want, send more energy. I'm still going to kick your ass. Bye.